What is up, guys? It's Ghost Later, and today we're going to be talking about Wukong, the Monkey King. Now, just in case you guys did not know who I am, I'm a Diamond Wukong main, and I have over 400,000 mastery points with Wukong, so I have a lot of experience with the champion, and now let's get on to the good stuff. Now, Wukong is a fighter that is really good at carrying. Like, literally, Wukong's like the best champion in main. His ultimate is just crazy, does tons of damage, great sustain. He actually doesn't really have any sustain, so that's why he's so bad in the jungle, but he's pretty good at ganking, so keep that in mind. Now, Wukong's abilities make for great engages while making him really tanky. Now, Wukong's passive is the thing that makes him tanky. For every champion that is close to him, he gets more armor and magic resist. So the more champions, the more armor and magic resist. Now, Wukong's Q allows him to get extra damage for his next auto attack, and also increasing the range, also shredding the armor of the enemy. You can also Q over walls. If you guys did not know, I'm going to show you a quick clip right here of Wukong Qing over a wall. Now, Wukong's W allows him to turn invisible while leaving behind a clone. Now, your clone can tank every single ability in the game. That means whether it be REE or Malphite Q or whatever, he could tank everything. It includes towers, Baron, and even dragon. Now, make sure to watch out for pinks because they show true vision, which can really mess you up in team fights. They're like my worst nightmare. Trust me, I have like nightmares of pink wards just laying everywhere. But other than that, he can either use his W to escape or engage. It's really good for ganking because if you could W in the fog of war and you can just E on the enemy, it'll be an easy peasy gank. They'll never see you coming. Wukong's E allows him to dodge up to to dash up to 3 units, dealing damage to all the units. You could also E over walls, and it's just great for engaging and gap closing. Wukong's R ability, which is his ultimate, allows him to spin, doing damage per second to everyone, knocking them up in the radius, and he also gets movement speed during the duration. So while you're ulting, you get a lot more movement speed, and you can just ult everyone. It's just crazy, and it's amazing. Now, Wukong, in my opinion, is one of the best champions to main in League of Legends. He's just amazing for every single role, except support and AD carry. I guess you could play him support, but he is really good top lane, mid lane, and jungle. He's just excellent, but top lane, I would not suggest maining him top lane. It is kind of tricky because you are going to be against really tanky, heavy bruisers that Wukong cannot handle, such as Renekton, Fiora, even Malphite. Like, he can't handle those champions. So mid lane and jungle are the best places to play Wukong. What am I saying? And in a solo lane, we're going to be talking about solo lane right now. In solo lanes, you're always going to max your E, and you're always going to start an E. Always start Corrupting Potion. Now, Corrupting Potion is just great because Wukong has no sustain. Zip 0. So you're going to need a lot of sustain in the laning phase to get enough gold so you can go back and get a free pickaxe or whatever you're going to build to get that Hydra, because Hydra is going to be your first item. So you're going to max E in lane, and then you're going to max Q. You never want to max Q first because if you don't max E, it does 0 damage. It's ridiculous how much damage E does if you don't max it. If you don't put points in E, it does like 0 damage. It's crazy. But it's a really good gap closer. So we're gonna max his E, Q, and then W. And try your best to bully the laner as much as possible because you're Wukong. You have ridiculous damage. You have an escape with your W. It's just crazy how much you can poke. A really good combo for poking the enemy laner is going in with your E, Qing the enemy, and then Wing right out, and then just repeating that. When your laner gets low enough, you should be able to all in him with your ultimate, because Wukong is just so good at poking. His combo is just ridiculous for that, and sometimes you can even just Q your enemy and they can't even reach you because most of the time they're probably just going to be melee, or even if they are ranged, it's going to be really hard because you have a W and you can just escape. But don't forget to last hit, because last hitting is the whole entire game. If you don't know how to last hit, don't lane, play jungle. It's just last hitting. The better you are at last hitting, the higher rank you are going to be. It's proven. It's really because without gold and experience, you're not going to have enough items, and then without enough items, you're not going to be able to take anybody. And with experience comes before gold. If your laner is zoning you from farm so you can't get any gold, at least get the experience, because as long as you keep up levels, you should be able to come back pretty easily. But if you're really low on levels, it's going to be really hard for you to come back because they're going to have the health advantage. You get stats the higher level you are, so you're going to be losing out. Although kills are good and all, experience and gold come first. But here's some Ruins and Banshees that you are going to want to take on Wukong in a solo lane. Builds, trust me guys, they completely vary. So every single game, you guys should not have the same exact build. It's going to completely vary on what the enemy team has, what your position is, and how good your team is doing. If your team is like really behind and you're doing really bad as well, you're probably going to go a lot more tanky because you know you're behind. But if you're a lot more ahead, you're going to probably go Hydra and then full tank. I mean full AD. You're not going to go full tank because you're so ahead. But it just depends on what the enemy team goes. Don't go the same exact build. This is just going to be an example build of how to build Wukong. What you are going to want to do though is you're always going to probably always want to go Hydra first and then boots. But if you are like really behind and let's just say you're 0-20 in lane and you just got completely crushed on, you can't build Hydra anymore, I would suggest going Black Cleaver and then full tank just because you want that extra little bit of tankiness so you can sustain a lane. For boots, it completely depends on the enemy team. Now if they have like a Fed Caitlyn, I would go Tab Eyes. If they have like a Fed LeBlanc, go Merc Treads. In my opinion, I think that Boots of Swiftness are the best right now since they nerfed Merc Treads really hard, and Boots of Swiftness just gives you so much mobility and it prevents you from getting slowed as much, so it's just really overall good on Wukong. If you're behind, you're going to want to go a little bit more tanky. If you're ahead, you want to go damage. If you continue to go damage right after, so you get Hydra, and then you get Boots, and then you get Black Cleaver. And then if you continue to go damage, you're going to want to go Youmuus, Death's Dance, and then Ma. It completely matters. You don't have to go Death's Dance. You don't have to go Ma. But Youmuus, I believe it's a must if you're going to want to go more damage. Because Youmuus is just so good on Wukong right now. It gives him everything that he needs. They took out the crit, so it's just amazing with your kit. Wukong doesn't really need crit. Although it's good, it's, you know, he doesn't really need it. And if you were going to go if you are going to want to go tank right after the Youmuus or the Deadmans, or not the Deadmans, sorry. If you're going to want to go tank right after your Black Cleaver, I would suggest going Deadmans, Spirit Visage, or Banshees. Those are really good tanky items that will help you. And your last item, most of all, is going to be GA. Guardian Angel is like the best last item on Wukong. Not only do they have to deal with you twice if you die in a team fight, it's just crazy because the enemy team kind of struggles deciding whether to kill you or not because you have GA. They don't want to deal with you twice as much. So GA is just really good for a jungle build. Now, for a jungle build, you are always going to want to go the jungle item, which is going to be Warrior, but it's going to be your choice. If you're starting Romp, you're going to start Machete, and if you're starting Talesman, you're probably going to start Krugs. So you guys need to figure out what you're starting. Lifesteal is for blue buff, and then mana regen is for red buff. So, and then building Warrior, you could either get Blue Smite or Red Smite. I suggest Blue Smite. Red Smite, it's all personal preference, really. Whatever you like in the jungle more. I honestly love Blue Smite and Wukong. It's just great because it gives me that little bit more of a burst. I don't like the damage over time with the Red Smite. I just love that instant burst, and it gives me movement speed, which is really good for ganking sometimes and slowing the enemy. Now, after the jungle item, you're going to want to go Boots and then Black Cleaver and then Youmuus. Then you could choose whether to go even more tank or more damage or tank. Now, if I feel Youmuus is just an amazing item on Wukong. It's like a must always. But now for counters, you guys better watch out for Lee Sin and Renekton. Those guys are your worst nightmares. Don't get close to Renekton if you're laning against him, and don't ever underestimate Lee Sin's invade power. Literally, I've been invaded with every time I'm against a Lee Sin. Trust me, guys, I get invaded every single time. I don't know if they like love invading Wukongs because they counter them, or they just are just butts. I don't know, dude. But they really, really love invading Wukongs. So always make sure you guys are careful against those guys. And then the summoner spells that you are gonna want to take for Wukong jungle are Smite and then Flash. But if you're going top lane, you're gonna want to go Flash and then Ignite if you're able to kill the enemy later. So let's just say you're against Lulu and you know that you can kill her during laning phase, then I would go Ignite. But if you're against, like, let's say a Renekton, and you know that you're gonna get zoned in lane, and you're not gonna be able to get that much you're not going to be able to last hit well without getting poked down and almost getting dived. So I would take TP if you're against Renekton or Malphite or Fiora, and take Ignite if you're against like a Galio top lane and you know you can kill him pretty easily. So those are what you're going to want to take. And when you're jungling, you're always going to start E and then W and then Q. That is the pattern of abilities you should get in the jungle. And then you should always max E, always. Like, no matter what, max E. Because Q, not that great unless you're against, like, a Malphite. Then that would work because you get that armor shred. But then you max W last. So you max E, and then you max Q, and then you max W. When ganking, what you want to do is you want to W in the fog of war so they don't see you. E onto the enemy, then Q them to do as much damage as possible. Try your best. When always doing this, try your best to Q and then E for maximum damage. Because if you don't, I probably mentioned this earlier, you shred armor with your Q. So after you shred the armor, you do more damage over that because they have less armor. So it's just really good. And then E onto your enemy, and it's just great. But if you're ganking, you don't always have to Q. You could E and then Q and then auto attack them to death. It's crazy. Here's some Ruins and Masteries that you are going to want to take on Wukong jungle. Although Ruins and Masteries, they completely depend on what you like. These are the Ruins Masteries that I use. You don't have to use these Masteries. I mean, Ruins and Masteries, you could use what you want. But this is what I use. There's a lot of Ruins and Masteries out there. If you guys want to look for Wukong mains other than me, there is Titan and Alorum. Those guys are really good Wukong mains. You guys can go. Titan doesn't really stream or anything. Alorum streams. I'm gonna shout him real quick. Shout him out real quick. Alorum. I'll leave his link in the description if you guys are wondering. He's a challenger Wukong main. He's pretty good. And that's about it for Wukong mains out there. You know what? Let's talk about it later. Alright, let's move on to how we fight with Wukong. In team fights, always ult in, but don't ult in if you get no follow-up. Now, if you know that your team is slow, then don't 1v5 because you know your team's not going to follow up, and they're not going to follow up with your ultimate, your 5-man knock-up. So make sure you always ult in the best spot possible. So when you're ulting, you're going to want to ult in in a good spot where you do a lot of damage and take the least amount of damage. So what I suggest doing is aiming for the backline where the squishies are so you can get as much damage on them and try to kill them, because if you eliminate a carry that is super fed, you're going to be able to easily win that fight because there's going to be only tanks and they're not going to do enough damage to kill you. And that is going to wrap up this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching this guide on Wukong. I hope you guys have an excellent day. Make sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, and I hope you guys found it today. It's Ghost Center, and I'm out. Peace.